Welcome everybody, Story Dragon here reviewing Rage of Dragons by Evan Winters, and a hello. And if you're a subscriber already, a double hello, but if you want a double hello in the next video, subscribe now, leave a like and a comment. First things first, I really enjoyed this book, and I am not giving any spoilers in this review, let's get that out of the way. I'm a slow reader, but I burned through the 544 pages of Rage of Dragons really quickly, for me, so that's always a good sign. If I read a book quickly, regardless of my final thoughts on it, then I probably did enjoy something in it. And we'll get to what I enjoyed soon, but first a little bit of background and a bit of plot without spoilers. Originally a self-published book that was then picked up by Orbit about 2 years later, interestingly going from 438 pages as a self-published book to the 544 from Orbit. The author is Evan Winters, who, as far as I can tell, was born in England and grew up there, but now lives in Canada, has an American accent in interviews. That might just be me not able to understand American and Canadian. Just go with it. But he really pushes his South African heritage very heavily in his author bio. And this book, if you don't know, is set in an African-inspired fantasy world. I mentioned this early purely because I'm about to butcher a lot of the pronunciation of names that anyone from South Africa would obviously be able to say, no doubt, very easily and obviously. So my bad, but let's push through, and I'm actually going to do my best to just not say those words to avoid embarrassment. Okay, let's go over the basic story and plot, right? So we start with a prologue battle. Technically, a prologue is normally considered something you can skip. I would agree you don't need to read anything here. In fact, a lot of it is very confusing because as a Western reader, you just get thrown a whole bunch of words right at your face and you don't know what any of them mean. Looking back on it, I enjoyed reading it, but it added nothing to the story. So, should you read it? I guess. I mean, it was fun, I suppose. But there's no real context, it never gets referenced again. It's like he had a cool idea for a battle and threw it in there. Fine. We then meet the main character, Tau. Tau's a cool guy. He's a lesser, which is a whole caste system thing. We'll get into that in a moment. We then go, like literally the next chapter after meeting our main character, into another battle. So the prologue had a battle. Then we meet our main character, who is in the middle of a fight, but like a training fight. Then we go into another battle in the next chapter. Guys, at this point I was scared. Don't get me wrong, fantasy needs battles, I get that. But, oof, I was like, oh no. Is it just fight after fight after fight? Because if so, I'm probably backing out of this one. Something then happens in the next few chapters and Tau vows to kill everyone involved in it. And from this point forwards, shows no other emotion than seething hatred. Tau accidentally kills a character that was made out to be unquestionably evil, but is banished anyway, because who cares if people are evil, right? He goes through a bunch of tests to join the military organization for the Omahai, which is the name of the race of people that he is. He is in fact the only person to fail the test, but gets let through anyway because Jayed, his military teacher, thinks he's a cool dude, man. That's literally the reason given, basically. Like, it's just like, oh, hey, Tau, I saw that you lost the battle, but I like ya. It is what it is. Okay, so anyway, he goes into the training, the most elite training. I don't know how he got into that. He failed, whatever. He failed the test, but he got into the most elite, regiment of the army. Regardless. But because he failed in the test, he actually goes into it with a broken arm. His sword arm is broken, so he has to learn to fight with his other arm. At which point, against all military knowledge throughout literally all of history, and most of fantasy, frankly, he becomes more proficient and deadly dual-wielding swords than with a sword and shield or shield and spear. Okay, cool. Whatever. If you want to run dual swords, you run dual swords, man. That's fine. He then trains super hard and gets pretty good at fighting. He then finds a way to repeatedly kill himself in this world's version of Hell, Isihogo, and then like 2 chapters later is literally the best fighter in the world, bar none. No, really, the best. Like, no one can be... It's fine, whatever. Okay, then we have all the different training military classes fight against each other in a test to see who's the best. Cool. I mean, that's like standard tropes, you know. Then a bunch of stuff happens that I won't spoil, because up until this point we have the training and the power leveling up. That is a pretty common trope among the genre in general. You know, whenever you have a military school or a training school, this is what happens. But of course, the actual unique parts of the plot are their own thing that we don't need to know to review this book. So even though I've just told you kind of the first half of the book, don't worry, you know nothing relevant. Everything I just told you could have been like from any other book. Let's have a quick word about the magic system. So basically, very rarely women are born with magic, and if they're gifted, which is the term for that, they are treated as the highest class of person because it's so rare. They go into battle and essentially have 2 spells. All of them can enervate, which is a spell that has an area of effect attack on a place they cast it at. Kind of like throwing a fireball spell, except instead of setting everyone on fire, it pulls everyone into Isi-Hogo, this world's version of hell, basically, until they are devoured and killed by demons, which doesn't actually physically kill the people, but it's still pretty traumatizing and gives the soldiers time to run in and kill the enemy as the enemy is recovering. Now, the more powerful women can control dragons. That's about it. Now, there are checks and balances in this system. It's possible to overload your ability, and then these demons in Isi-Hogo will kill you, and it will actually physically kill you, instead of just kind of like spiritually killing you, just like bumming you out a bit, you know. You know, like you come out of hell and you're just a bit bummed out. You're like, oh man, this kind of sucks. But it will actually physically kill you this time. But that's about it. Isi-Hogo is very important because it's where Tao goes to hone his skills. Right, so addendum. Anyone can go to Isi-Hogo, males as well as females, gifted as well as not gifted. All you have to do is be calm for like 5 seconds of meditation. That's literally all Tao had to do to go there. It was a very short scene. I think the words were, he was calm. Oh, he's in hell. Yet somehow no other male or even non-gifted female seems to know this is possible. Rather telling of masculinity in a warrior society, I suppose, but fine. And that's pretty much the magic system. Let's talk about the battles, the fighting, because this is an epic fantasy book, and as I said, it basically starts off with 2 big battles in a row, and then we go to a battle school where all they do is fight each other, and then traditionally there's a big battle at the end of the book, right? So if the battles suck to read, this is going to be a terrible book, no matter, forget the rest, right? So we've got to talk about the battles and the fights and the swords and the cutting, and yeah. This book is... Okay, let me tell you what I like to see in a book. I like to see lethality. I like to know that a single swipe from a sword can kill a person, much like it can in real life. That interests me. I like how tense that can make something. I like how it can add to the confusion of battle. I think it's a cool idea. If you're writing something relatively realistic in that regard, you have to point out how a single attack from a sword can kill you. And it can kill the people you like as well. He did this quite well. In fact, there were some points in the book where a single attack ended a really big thing. Like there was a really big build up to it. One hit from a sword, somebody's dead. I like that. And I like that once you've kind of built that up and you've made that a thing, you can then show just how skillful someone is by how many times, or, you know, by effectively how long a fight can be made, knowing that every single exchange is a potential death. I like that. Mr. Winters did that pretty well, actually. Yeah, you know, he very clearly made out that a single sword strike can kill. We see somebody die quite early on, someone that is far above him in skill and just wrecks him. And we then go through and we do exactly what I said, where there's a big build up to something and then a single attack finishes it. But at the same time, we do have Tao, our main guy, who, as I mentioned earlier, becomes literally the best fighter in the entire world, who manages to exchange blows, you know, blow after blow, and it's very good. I really enjoyed the fights in this. I think it was really well done. Now here's a question, because I don't like grimdark. Doesn't interest me, okay? So is this a grimdark book? Ultimately, no. It really isn't, but purely because, in my opinion, of the writing style. The writing was great. There was nothing complicated about it. The prose was fine. It was something I wanted to read. Okay? Good. That's what I like to read. I don't like purple prose. I don't like flowery language. On occasion, it's fine. But for the majority of the book, I just want to be told what's happening, essentially. And in this, the more grim elements that typically I associate bad grimdark with lingering on. Maybe I'm wrong in this because, again, I don't read a huge amount of grimdark because I know I don't like it. But the grimdark I've read, let's say somebody kills somebody, right? And they make the kill, and then that person is dead. And it's like, okay, so, in a regular book, you'd say, he swiped his sword and the guy died, and then the sword fighter moved on. In grimdark, I would expect it to be more like, yes, our depressed, alcoholic swordmaster, was swordmaster from 10 years ago when he was a swordmaster. Now he's a washed-up old man. Felt the cut of the blade slice through the pig-like flesh of the equally drunk, criminal. No, you wouldn't be killing a criminal, he'd be killing somebody good. Robin Hood slashed that, and then it's like, and then his entrails exploded all over the drunkard's face, and it reminded him of his youth when his father died in his eyes. I was like, okay, great, cool, yeah, thanks for that, nice, cool, thanks, yeah, awesome. But it didn't do that. They didn't linger here, so that's fine. But if you just look at the story of Rage of Dragons and what happens, then yeah, this is like literally nothing good happens in this book. There is no point at which you can look at this book and say, oh, they should be happy because of this. Never. Literally never. It's really bad. At no point is any character given any reprieve from sadness and hatred. I'm going to be honest. And the external questions the book addresses are crushingly depressing. It's really terrible. It's really bad. Tau is an odd choice of name. Good segue, I realise. As far as I'm aware, it's a Greek word and the only name that I could instantly read without having to sound it out first. I wonder what the reason for this choice was. Is it possible that it was accessibility for Western readers? Or perhaps I'm just ignorant and it's actually a very common name in South Africa. Who knows? I haven't Googled it. Okay, why did I like this book? Well, this is going to be a roundabout answer, isn't it? Since Brexit, I've gotten pretty political, and so a story that is so clearly attacking classism just tickles me in places I haven't been touched in a long time. The entire thing is a commentary on classism. I'm sure this is in some way related to the state of South Africa, the things that we all know have happened there, but as I'm not nearly informed enough to comment with any reliability, I won't. However, the class system is an easy analogy to the more familiar inequality in Europe and America. There are biological differences between the classes, or castes as they are called in this book, and interbreeding isn't allowed, although naturally does happen. There's a lot of that classic fantasy staple that no one even questions anymore because apparently we all have Stockholm Syndrome from it, but there's a lot of good old-fashioned rape in this book. Maybe, I don't know, authors could stop creating worlds where rape is totally cool, bro. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe find a way to discuss issues without constantly subjecting women to subhuman levels of indecency. I don't know. Whatever, man. Whatever. Maybe rape isn't the only thing in the world that women don't like. Perhaps there are other things. I don't know. Crazy idea. Whatever. I got sidetracked. Moving on. With these exaggerated and physical differences between the social classes, the book discusses these things. However, as the entire Omahai culture is based on war, your class is really dictating how big and strong and fast you are. So the class divide is rarely more apparent than here. It's not a social and monetary gap you need to cross like in real world. You need to literally grow a foot in height and go on a non-stop bulking phase. Now Tau actually crosses that. Without any physical change occurring, and is able to beat enemies literally twice his height and mass with frankly very little trouble. I'm fine with this though. It's a fantasy book, who cares? I also intend to bring this point up, and the fact that I haven't seen a single review complaining about this fact. The next time some knob points out that women shouldn't be equal to men when fighting because of biology, I was like, come on, man. However, my favourite thing was actually something outside of the writing. I read this on Kindle, and as you might be aware, you are able to highlight a passage, which people typically do when they read a particularly inspiring quote or something funny, whatever. There's a scene with Tau talking to Jayed, his military teacher, about quarter of the way through the book, 25% of the way through. And there are 3 paragraphs in about 2 pages where Jayed is saying that if people try hard enough and pull together, then the lessers can overcome the nobles, basically. And quite a few people had highlighted these paragraphs. And obviously they did it because it was an uplifting speech when Tao has basically just been crushed, and this is his pep talk. And that gave me a really good chuckle, because I have to assume that these people that highlighted this passage had skipped to exactly that scene and just not read the first quarter of the book. Because literally, the entire book is about how, no, the class system is real and it will destroy your life, as it has already done, and you've seen friends and family die because of it, and factually, no, you cannot progress out of it. And these highlighters must have just missed that and thought, oof, what a nice little speech about inequality. I guess when you ignore the entire point the book is making, everything can sound nice. In fact, the book goes on to confirm that this pep talk was a lie in multiple ways, and the class system is absolute. And I don't know, maybe these people that highlighted these passages actually genuinely believe in class mobility, and maybe they've just never looked at statistics on it in the real world, and they're thinking, oh yes, individual responsibility is a big thing, and that can help you move up and down the classes. There is a way to beat this, and I can only assume that's just an ideal and they haven't looked at actual statistics on this. Anyway, talking about the real world, probably not helping people when I'm reviewing a book. As I said earlier, nothing good happens in this book. The prologue is the high point, and it just keeps getting worse and more depressing. Anyway, to reiterate, I rather enjoyed the book, but I'm having a hard time recommending it to people because I don't like grimdark, and this is pretty grimdark. So, if you like grimdark, then yes, please go and buy this book. It's a well-trod, brilliant adventure story in a unique world. But if you like to smile and you like happiness and you don't need another external factor pushing you closer to the edge, and we all know what I mean when I say the edge, then maybe give this book a miss until you're feeling a little bit stronger. Solid advice for any grimdark novel, really. So, good book, but you might off yourself after reading. Anyway, this has been Story Dragon. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope I didn't get too off topic there. I will be the first to admit I let this one get away from me a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think of Rage of Dragons? I've basically only heard glowing praise for this book. Do you have any negatives? What do you think was the worst aspect of this book? And, of course, what do you think was the best? Just so you know, I haven't read the sequel yet, although I know obviously it is out. And finally, I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. Goodbye.